Welcome to the CXO Café by Coding Ninja's 10x Club, where you get exclusive insights from top industry leaders and founders so that you learn from leaders and rise as one. Today, you'll hear from a data leader who's shaping the analytics at one of India's fastest growing fintech startups. And this will help you get those secret first hand insights about the skills that you require to accelerate in the analytics career. If you want to stand out and accelerate your analytics career, today's episode is going to be your playbook. So don't miss anything because this playbook is here to make you leaders of the future.
And having a very structured thinking in how you want to solve a problem. I don't think you need tech skills for that. That's primarily a sort of a mindset and an intent of whether you want to enter this field. A non-tech professional can probably start with SQL or something as basic as an Excel or basic stats.
This as Gen AI, Auto ML is automating more analytical skills. What must analysts do to future-proof their skills? Because it's in everyone's mind today that AI will take away our jobs because they are doing it faster, more productive. So what skills or mindsets do you think?
So think about it, right? The key differentiator will be a business understanding, developing a domain experience, and the must-have skill, which is storytelling with data.
And we also hope that our learners become the future leaders. A very warm welcome to you, Mr. Dhiraj, and we are really grateful and honored to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me. Good evening, everyone.
So as the CXO Café's mission has always been to interact with leaders of the industry to understand their strategic mindset, how was their journey and what are the skill set, what are the important skills and important characteristics that a leader should have, and that we could only get from an exclusive interaction with leaders at top companies. And we're really honored to have such an eminent person from such a big company, Razorpay. And we are sure that from today's session, we will surely learn a lot, not just how to, be in your career, also how your characteristics should be, your mindset should be, and also how you should take your path forward. So with your permission, sir, let's start with this fireside chat. And I hope that this is going to be really, really interesting.
Absolutely. Let's start right away. Thank you.
Yes. So we'll start with the first question, and we wanted to know more about your journey. So if you could please walk through your journey, starting from NIT Mysore to head of analytics at Razorpay, and also being included in 40 under 40 India 24 leaders. So we'll be really grateful if you could share us your journey.
Sure, absolutely. So as you rightly called out, my journey started obviously at NIT Mysore, where I built my foundation, right, in engineering and problem solving. Ideally, right after that, the first goal is to get a job. I did take a conscious decision that I really wanted to kind of upskill myself. So right after my engineering, I went to the US to do my master's in computer science from Northeastern NJ Tech, right? And that really gave me a perspective on obviously the culture, learning how engineering is understood, obviously how people interact, which was definitely one of the basic foundations that where I am right now. Obviously, I moved into the data role very early in my career. Even during my engineering, I used to kind of work with my family, assist my dad in kind of looking at various Excel sheets, and I used to model it out for him. So I definitely had that interest way long and earlier, and I used to also do pro bono for a lot of things. Just trying to get excited and see what I can make of from an insight perspective, how I can assist in simplifying things, obviously leveraging data. As I moved into those data roles, as I said early in my career, I started gradually realizing that there's a massive potential that data holds, right, to drive business decisions. And over the period, I have definitely been fortunate to work across different industries, and across the world as well. Worked in multitude of countries, working with investment banks as Deutsche Bank and Bank of America. But I then realized that fintech specifically was very evolving. And it really allowed me to combine, data, product, and business, and create an impact at scale. Even in fact, in my current role at Razorpay, I have gotten the opportunity to, scale the analytics function, redefining how analytics partners with product and business, and further, scaling this, which is already a high performing team, and get it more AI driven. Right. Obviously, a lot of this, when you start looking at a perspective, every role, every opportunity that I've got working with different companies has had an incremental impact in terms of how I, learn, how I carry out my work, how I look at data, how do I interact with stakeholders, and the different facets that you get to learn, right? The whole goal is to not kind of typecast yourself into a particular domain, but to get as much as diverse, get out of the comfort zone, and be able to grasp as much as different domain information. Because over a period of time, when you've worked in different domains and you've grasped that information and experience, as you evolve in your career, in your journey, all of that collectively plays a very big impact in how you look at data, how you carry out insights, and how you are able to correlate that. AKA a very classic example of how AI is now kind of being able to kind of relate to that, right? Where it links contextual data with domain specific information, being able to do that. So I think as an analyst too, you're not very different. Building a very diverse set and be able to work in different domains is something that everyone should definitely start very early in their career and should continue. There's always no end to it. So as I, right? So that's very basic, the building blocks of where I am right now. Obviously, being included in the 40 under 40 India leaders list was quite humbling. It obviously reflects the collective work of the teams that I've led and the strong data culture that I've built. So it's a testament to that. Now, that's all I can say.
Truly said, but sir, it's all about your efforts and your skill also. And we really wanted our learners to get your advice, as you said. So not stick to one, get out of your comfort zone and go to diverse fields so that you understand the whole market. So as you said that you started working in data at a very early stage and still you're working. So we would want to know what's something about working in data that still excites you even after all these years.
Absolutely, right? I get that question a lot. Almost everyone keeps asking, right? See, I'll tell you, the fact that the data itself constantly evolves is itself quite exciting. Every few years, there's a new paradigm, right? It started off with cloud, it then started into machine learning, now it's generative AI. And yet, if you understand the core challenge, it absolutely remains the same. How do you simplify complex data to help business make better decisions? Period. Right. And ideally it's that continuous learning way. It could be different platforms, it could be all evolving around you, but leveraging those new facets, new technologies, and be able to kind of solve this. And then that continuous learning and the real world problem solving is always one important thing that keeps every person who's working in analytics will find it exciting. This has always been the case, right? Because no two data points at at two different points are the same. So it constantly, one time it could paint out a different insight, at the later point as it evolves it'll keep on painting the a different insight altogether. So you're not always looking at the same thing. And as those evolve and as you start kind of linking different things, combining different things, you'll get various insights that come out of it. Obviously, that keeps everyone on the edge of their seat. And now, given the huge shift in AI and how you can do things much faster, 10x the speed, it just adds more zing to the already fun that's going on. You're on mute.
As you said, sir, that it's still that AI is making it more and more, exciting. But there are people, and there are many people in today's kind of a myth also, and people think that this as Gen AI, Auto ML is automating more analytical skills. What must analysts do to future-proof their skills? Because it's in everyone's mind today that AI will take away our jobs because they are doing it faster, more productive. So what skills or mindsets do you think will truly set them apart in this current AI decade?
Oh, absolutely. So think about it, right? The key differentiator will be a business understanding, developing a domain experience, and the must-have skill, which is storytelling with data. Now, the way you have to portray or kind of perceive this is there will be multiple tools that will come and multiple tools that will go, different technologies come and go, right? What is available right now, you need to leverage that in order to enable yourself. I think I've had been part of multiple discussions where a certain facet thinks that AI will replace analytics or AI will replace certain jobs. The goal is it's not ideally replacing it unless you have mastered it, right? And there are certain things like having a thorough business understanding, a domain understanding, which you can leverage, and you should be leveraging AI to in order to be able to accelerate yourself, right? How do I storytell using these tools? There will be tools that will automate queries. There will be tools that might interpret certain results, but there is no equivalent of collecting or combining all of this and influencing decisions or even identifying opportunities. This is human. No tool can replace this. No automation can replace this. That's very innate to what an analyst should be, right? Identifying those opportunities and still have the ability to influence decisions using these things. Also, the major focus that analysts should develop is developing a domain expertise, as I called in earlier. Because think about it, if people have already started, I'm sure most of the audience here knows what OpenAI is, what ChatGPT is, what Gemini Pro is, right? It is nothing but it's echoing the data that's available out there, right? Now, obviously, if you're able to use a larger set of the data and still be able to kind of leverage it for your own internal understanding, internal domain, leveraging that expertise. Because every company, if you're working, let's say for a company, right? I'll give an example for Razorpay. Razorpay will have its own context. It'll have its own way of thinking. It has its own way of carrying out metrics and everything. Now, obviously, leveraging that data and being able to answer that from a Razorpay perspective, answer that from a fintech standpoint, there's definitely no AI that can replace it. That's all human. And your ability to kind of collect all that data and influence and identify opportunities is also human. So it's very important for you to develop that expertise, have an ability of critical thinking, and the ability to tie these insights to business outcomes. That's a core skill that every analyst should work upon, irrelevant of what tool will come and go.
And I think the answer that you gave was really boosting, a confidence boosting for all our learners, because everyone has this thought in today's time that these tools are becoming more productive and they will replace us. But I think they have got this perfect answer, that what is the role of a human that cannot be replaced. And so with this question itself, so as we are talking about AI and this new trend of automations, so what's the most exciting shift in analytics that you have seen in 2025?
Well, I'll say, see, it's a little too early for me to say excited, but let's say early part of 2025, right? How is generative AI getting applied on, let's assume, on top of an enterprise data stack, and how it is changing organizations interact with data? Because if you look at it, historically, we have been sitting on 70% dark data. What does that mean? A lot of the data gets generated, but organizations never either they don't have enough bandwidth or the tools and systems in place to kind of look at everything and be able to make insights out of it. Now with generative AI, it just untapped that potential, right? You can still untap into the 70% data, right? Imagine like an iceberg. You will see the tip of the iceberg, but the majority is below the sea. Now, generative AI is kind of unraveling that top to bottom. Obviously, there was a big barrier for the non-analytics crowd in creating SQL queries, right? Because SQL was the main barrier for someone to enter analytics, and also a little bit of Python. Natural language querying has now picked up pace, right? So there are certain tools that create some automated insights. There are AI co-pilots that are democratizing analytics far beyond traditional dashboards. So we are ideally, if you look at it, moving analytics as a service layer, and which is embedded into our day-to-day decision making. And I think this space is pretty much evolving, right? We also have leveraged some of it in my current line of work as well. But what we have seen is it's a big enabler, and it's also evolving. There's obviously a lot of hallucination that comes along with it unless you control in the way how it can respond. It can respond at scale, but you'll have to define the guardrails on what you want it to respond. right? So it's definitely evolving space, but yes, application of the generative AI on an enterprise tech stack and data stack is ideally, I would say, is the most exciting shift in analytics in the early part of 2025. We'll have to look at agentic framework and how that evolves probably in the second part of this year, but we'll see.
And as you said in the beginning itself, that it's too early to say 2025, because as we are seeing, the technology is evolving too rapidly. First, it was having TVs within 50 years, then it came to 10, and today, like every month, we have a new technology. And I think, as you said, evolving with that, and to your previous question also, as you said, we need to evolve with that, master that skill, and that will not be replaced with that. Sure, sir. And as you also mentioned that, about data analysts, that SQL was the barrier there. So there are another barrier also, which people have their thought in. So is a tech background truly necessary to break into analytics? And from someone coming from a non-tech background, what should be the most practical and effective first step they should take?
Okay. See, firstly, having a tech background and is it necessary to break analytics? Not at all, right? While a tech background absolutely helps analytics in, if it's a multidisciplinary field, it's just an enabler. What matters more is curiosity, problem solving skills, having the right mindset in terms of asking the questions, and having a very structured thinking in how you want to solve a problem. I don't think you need tech skills for that. That's primarily a sort of a mindset and an intent of whether you want to enter this field. A non-tech professional can probably start with SQL or something as basic as an Excel or basic stats. Even today, AI is kind of enabling you to do that. Now, my advice to you is don't just get into that assuming that AI will help accelerate and I don't need to learn Excel or SQL. It is absolutely required, right? You need to have those bare basic skill sets, irrelevant of whether how efficiently AI automates all of that, because at a point you will realize that AI can only stretch to a certain extent. If you need to curate it, if you need to stretch it beyond, you need core SQL skills. So absolutely have the right intent, build that curiosity, have a problem solving mindset. As you evolve and as you grow into this field, you will gradually build technical depth. So you don't necessarily need a tech background to get into analytics.
And I think that is really motivating, because in today's time, we have this from most of our learners, that AI is coming and machine learning is coming, and we are not from a tech background. But I think what you said, that is really motivating for them. And learners, please do follow that, because as Sir has mentioned, the ways, if you're not from a tech background, these are the ways which you will be, which will help you go to or become an analytics leader. So please,
I'll give you an example, right, if I may, right, just to kind of give a much more wider perspective to the audience here. I've had folks in my team in my previous companies as well. Someone joining from aerospace background, someone who was completely new to analytics, was primarily working on the fashion industry and wanted a change in career. What I've always realized is it's better to have a diverse set of team with a diverse set of skills and not everyone from a tech background. And that's primarily the reason, because in analytics, it's a very creative field. A lot of people kind of typecast themselves thinking that it's purely stats, Excel numbers. It's not. That's just a means to kind of look at the data, interpreting that data and be able to tie the insights is a totally different skill which doesn't require tech. I have seen folks in my team who came from aerospace background, and they were very much singular with numbers, because they're building a turbine engine propellant and all. For them, even a fraction of a number change is a big thing. Now, someone looking like that and making that person enter into analytics, and then getting this person to kind of evaluate a whole trading system, right, or a fintech system, this person does a whole lot much better than someone who's traditionally entered the analytics field from scratch. So it brings that much needed value add. So if folks here are there who haven't generally started from analytics but would want to move into a traditional analytics fields, don't feel disheartened. You've not lost space. As long as you have that right mindset and structured thinking, I think you'll just be able to kind of excel like any other one.
And a very relatable question to whatever you said. As you said, you have led teams, scale teams at different companies and big companies. So what's one trait that makes an analyst instantly stand out and add value from day one?
It's well, there are two traits, but if I were to pick, right, it's ownership with storytelling skills. I'll tell you why I'm saying that, right? As analysts, someone who takes end-to-end ownership of problems and not just thinks about, hey, I will give this data pull, or I will just proactively, kind of share something with, I have shared those insights and my job is done. Those folks don't thrive much, right? I mean, you might just do the job, but you will not stand out. If you have an end-to-end state ownership, and analysts do have a superpower with them, which is data. You can leverage the data and be able to kind of look at where the problem is and how do I solve this in phase manner, and be able to talk to various of your stakeholders. How do I go about solving them? How do I help connect the dots? How can I suggest those actions? And then how do I even close the loop to create an immediate impact? That is a core skill that stands out, and it's a unique trait that makes an analyst excel. Obviously, all of this cannot be achieved unless you package it with a storytelling aspect. Because think about it, right? Today I can tell you certain things, but if I don't tie a story to it and tell you why it is needed and how is it needed, it could just be well received but not actioned upon. So tying an end-to-end ownership with its data storytelling skills is an absolutely must read and stands out for any analyst from day one.
And so as you mentioned about storytelling also, so as we have also had session for learners, so we have always found out from every leader that storytelling is one of the most important trait in data analysis. So if you could please, elaborate more or give any advices, because our learners are all in a stage that they are starting their careers in data analysis. And if you could give any advices to be very good at storytelling or start practicing it, so that will be really great for our learners.
Absolutely, right? So the storytelling comes, if I were to put it in a very general trait, it comes in two bases. One is, what is the content that you want to portray? Ideally, it has to have a structured problem solving or a structured way of thinking. You need to kind of define what is the problem statement that I'm trying to address, right? You'll now have different data points and you could collect multitude of data points. How do I put a proper data storytelling aspect to it? Break that into certain problems in as checkpoints and have an ability to kind of say, okay, size the problem, right? What is your entire target set? If I were to address 10% of this today, I am going to make Y impact. And if there are any particular metrics, North Star metrics that your org or your company is linked to, tying this back to those metrics takes, helps in adoption. A lot of leaders, a lot of your stakeholders will come forth when you tie that back to saying, hey, it maps to this particular metric. And if I am able to, improve this by 10%, let's assume it increases my GMV by X%, right? That's the first part. Having an ability to link to something as a common objective. Unless and until you do that, buy-in becomes a little tough, even at a most granular level to the most senior level. Secondly, how do I visualize that, right? Storytelling also cannot be plain numbers. It has to be put into a proper visualization, which means there's a concept called science of colors. There's a lot of books around that, and I know I would suggest folks here to kind of read through those. There's not one book, there's multitude of those, right? And how relevant and how easy do you make those visualizations show up in terms of tying the numbers is the second part of it. Because as they say, right, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So I follow a 3-second rule. If I create a dashboard or I create an insight or my team creates it, I ask them, can I explain what I want to showcase in 3 seconds within this visualization and have the right call outs with link to certain things? Then you have won the audience. If you haven't done that, it's going to be a little tough to do that. So these are some of the common traits that you can adopt. And rest everything will, and if you follow that as a structured thought process, rest everything falls in line.
And thank you. So that was a really valuable insight and suggestion for us, because all our learners, we have seen that storytelling has become, as I said, very important. So these are some skills learners you should follow, because these are the steps that will make you good at storytelling. And if I'm not wrong, sir, everything doesn't start from the first day. You have to do it, practice, and you will surely reach that point.
Yeah.
So let's come to the skills of an analyst. So we talked about the technology, what is evolving. So let's come to the skills. According to you, so what are the top three non-negotiable skills that you look when you're hiring analysts, and especially at high-performing teams?
I think I've covered them in the previous questions, but I'll kind of reiterate them, right? If I were to look at ideally anytime when we are hiring, obviously intent is by default something that we look at.
Right.
But if you look more from a sort of a analyst depth perspective, the very first that stands out is how structured you are in your problem solving. If you're not structured, you've lost the plot, right? You'll not be able to solve any other problem statement that's given, because you'll get dissolved in data. It'll just pile up on you. So unless and until you have a structured problem solving mindset, nothing else stands out. Secondly, how well you can curate the data, look at the data, how strong are your SQL or Python skills, or how strong are you able to articulate the data, right? Do you look at data? Are you able to connect the dots? If these are sitting elsewhere, how do you see data being tying up? Have that ability to kind of look at the larger picture. Is that something that you do more often? That's something that we measure as a second perspective. The third, but last but not the least, is to how simple and how easy, beyond storytelling, is your ability to communicate insights in very simple business terms, right? If you give a complicated problem, how can you break it down and have the ability to communicate in the most simplified form is the third most thing. If you are able to excel in these top three things, I think you're a winner.
And so we got the top three skills that are non-negotiable. So we'll just go to the other side of the coin. And in interviews, what's that one red flag that tells you that this analyst might not be ready for the role?
So as I said, it always starts with intent. But the one skill or one red flag and again, it's very difficult to put a bias. As an analyst myself, I would rather not put a bias there. But if you ask me if there's this one big red flag which comes in, is unstructured thought process or unstructured communications. If it's a non-negotiable skill set. If you're not structured, you will not be able to solve anything. You could be the most skilled person in terms, you could be an amazing rock star writing SQL queries, be able to kind of connect the dots well, but if you're not structured, you will always be putting in 100-200% of effort in your work, but no output impact coming out of it. So having a structured thought process is very, very important. And if you're unstructured at upfront and you're not able to articulate that to me is a major red flag.
And learners, so you have got both the non-negotiable skills plus the red flags. And this is coming from a leader of such a reputed company. So you should follow these things. And because these sessions are brought to you for the same reason, to understand from leaders, to get that mentorship that will surely help you to take your career from X to 10X. So I'll just reiterate one question. Maybe it could be repetitive, as you said. So what's that underrated skill and analysts always overlook, but can massively boost their careers or the impact that they are creating?
Okay. I think a lot of things. Okay, let me try it in a different way, right? And thank you for pointing out it. Underrated skill. I think this is going to be very interesting. The most underrated skill that I think is documentation. And I'll tell you what that means, right? When you are working on something, if you have not written the problem statement on paper, when I say paper, you've not itemized it, let's say on Google Docs, or you've not written a piece of paper. Some folks are very accustomed to writing it on a piece of paper. Some prefer to put it on a digital note, right? Trying to write the problem is half battle won. There's an anecdote that says that. What that means is you need to clearly document and articulate what is it that you want to solve for. Then document the logic of how you want to solve. And again, document what all assumptions and what all methods you're going to make it work. If you realize I said document thrice, right. The crux here is having the ability to document and be able to kind of articulate it, so that once you have defined how you want to solve for it, and you can walk and you can kind of maybe socialize it with your stakeholders, socialize it with your peers, think what they, critique on this particular problem statement that you have defined. I think that's one of the most underrated skill that an analyst often overlooks, right? Because they feel like, okay, someone came us to a problem, let's start working on it immediately. Never do that. Identify why you need to do it. Sometimes I also suggest and advise my teams, don't often give what their stakeholders are asking, but give them what they need.
Right.
So there's a huge difference if you kind of understand that. And that obviously comes when you start documenting, because let's assume you sit with a stakeholder and say like, okay, give me what the problem is, let me write it down. As you start writing it down, you realize that, okay, this is not the problem that we want to solve. I think we should be thinking in a different way. And here is how I think we should do. Here is my logic. Here is my assumptions. That sets you apart. And it's usually very underrated. Not many analysts follow it. And the folks who do follow excel big time in their career.
And so as you said about documentation, so if considering someone is a fresher and he has just got into, so maybe he wouldn't have that kind of approach or that mindset to approach and do a proper documentation. So what would be your advice to freshers or people who are just starting with it? What should be the best way to approach documentations and get better at it?
Okay. So there are two answers to this. If you had asked me a year ago, I would have only one answer, but now I'll have two answers. Obviously, the second answer, which is more relevant in current world, check any OpenAI ChatGPT tool and say, give me a framework of how I should write a problem statement. You'll get multiple ways of defining that. AI has made that very easy for anyone to start with a framework, right? Had you tried to do that last year, probably you'd have to still think, figure out, check with your peers, hey, do you have some format? Some may not even have that, right? Today, that's not the case. So that's the easier answer to this question. The original answer to this question is A, reach out, obviously try certain things, but if it also helps, reach out to certain folks in your team, some seniors. If you have specifically, since you mentioned, I've just joined my team, I don't know what or how I should approach this problem. The best person to reach out is probably your manager or your buddy that you work in your teams, and try and understand from them, hey, how do we really do documentation in this org? Is there a way how we, and every organization does this, right? There's no organization that doesn't do documentation. There will be some approaches, some templates that you can start leveraging, and maybe over a period of time, better it out and create your own version. So if you're not very, very sure, obviously reach out to some of your peers, figure out how things are and maybe able to do it. Last but not the least, the worst case could be you could just start defining the problem as simple as that, with no formats, none of that. Just define what the problem is, define how you're going to solve it. As simple as that.
So thank you for that. And I think as you were also talking, how technology is evolving so fast. And as you said, last year you would have just one answer, but just at the beginning or the mid of 2025. So we have the other option also. And I think that is becoming something that we have to evolve, not to be scared, but use it for our productivity.
Yeah.
And with this, I think I had also mentioned before, so I just want to share, as I was hearing a blog of Jensen Huang, the NVIDIA CEO. So he mentioned this thing that the people with AI skills will replace, and companies won't, throw away or lay off people, because when the productivity increases, no company is going to lay off people. So I think that was a very good thing that I heard, and the similar thing I heard from you. So I think this is something we need, or I think not need, has become a compulsion to have the AI skills with us.
See, I'll tell you, just to add on that, right? And for the larger benefit, because I get this question a lot. I'll maybe you've not asked me this question, but since you've touched upon on this factor, it's very important for this audience to kind of realize this. If you look at it, let's assume for my team as well, if of the 10 things that we were supposed to do today, without AI, my team was probably doing 3 things of the 10. And I really didn't have the bandwidth or the capacity to kind of take over the remaining 7 things. With AI, I'm able to do maybe 4 more, 5 more. So that takes a total of 7, right? Of the 10 instead of 3 out of 10. Yeah. Now my productivity has increased. That's one way of looking at it. If you look at it from a slightly different way, and if I can take the liberty of as an example, few years ago in India, As you know, we've just received our independence around 50 years ago. Largely, the mode of transportation from point A to point B was primarily bullock cart or horse-driven carriages, right? And I don't know how many of you are from Bangalore, but if you would do that, move from point A to point B, irrelevant to the traffic, it would have taken you X amount of time, right? Now, come forth maybe a motorized car. It just covered that exact same distance in probably 1/4 the amount of time or half the amount of time. And it was able to cover point A to point B twice. What does that mean? It's able to cover this distance much faster and more efficiently.
Right.
But the stark difference is today you don't see a lot of the horse-driven cars, neither the bullock cars, but all of them have been replaced by cars. What does that mean? That doesn't mean that jobs went away. It's just that the folks, and I'm hoping someone who was driving bullock carts and horse drivens at that point learned driving on a car and has now started evolving and is much faster, is obviously prosperous and thriving, and he's able to do things much faster. So gotta understand that AI will obviously replace those folks who don't upskill themselves. It's not that you don't do anything and your job will be secure. Absolutely, any new skill, and specifically when AI is coming, as long as you're embracing it and you're using it for your own productivity and to go much faster than what normally we would expect, you will definitely succeed. It's a superpower. It's a super tool that everyone should be using, not just from your day-to-day stuff, but to kind of identify what all different problems you can solve. There are discussions today where I've seen reading blogs which say that it's a one person teenager who set up like $1 billion company. I mean, that's actually a bet that's been placed, by a larger community, that the next billionaire is probably going to be like a 15-year-old who's just started by himself and has been creating, generative AI tools and leveraging all of that and creating a company or a product on their own. Maybe far-fetched, maybe not. We don't know. But I think everyone should be thinking from that process.
Yes, and it was such a beautiful example that you gave us about, bullock cart and car. A very layman example, and everyone can connect to that. So it was really a beautiful example. And so as we were talking about evolving and how to get the skills. So, but we have always seen that there is a difference when you go as an analyst, as a fresher, or as a mid-level experience, or a 5+ years of experience. So what would be your advice for these three segments, and what differently they should do to grab a good analyst role and become a great analyst in future?
Okay, for someone who's starting up very fresh, as I said, obviously you need to be very good with your core domain skills and structured thinking. But if you look at it, build your basic building blocks. You should be focusing more on that. Usually what I've seen is a lot of people who've just started in their career want an aha moment upfront, right? It feels like it's self-realization and like, I need to do this. I think you should first think about making yourself, more and more skilled. Make sure you're getting exposure to a lot more problems. Also, it's okay for you to fail early on and fail a lot, right? Because every time you fail, you paint out a wrong approach. You have just learned how one less of a way to not do that. And this is very important. No one excels 100% when they've just started off their career. You gotta fail, and you gotta fail fast, right? Mm-hmm. So as you're doing that, obviously enrich your skills on your technical aspect, Python, SQL, stats, visualization, problem solving skills, structured skills, and try and see how you can showcase some real world applications, right? This is for someone who's just started off freshly. Someone in their mid career, I think you've already have your domain experience. As I was quoting the earlier example, someone coming from, let's say, Boeing or, aerospace division, and kind of being able to tie that. You should be able to tie your domain experience and tie to what all technical problems that one can solve, right? And when you look at that, it becomes a very amazing combination that you can actually demonstrate from a practical standpoint. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, if we'll take a very classic example of fintech, right? Someone who obviously has core experience in, let's say, a bank, right, or account management. If that person suddenly starts coming and starts working on the fintech, this person will have a appreciative knowledge about how customer empathy works, how you are able to kind of look at various problems that your end state customer faces during transactions, and you'll be able to tie that back into your fintech experience, right? Because fintech is all about simplifying things. But if you had that knowledge and you're able to tie that into fintech, it's an amazing combination. And I can give you multiple examples like that. So I think for mid-level experience folks, the more important aspect is um, taking your domain experience and being able to tie out into real world problems and be able to see how you can give a practical spin to it, and then obviously go for the kill. Someone very experienced, obviously you're going to be measured on execution, how you influence your decisions, how you manage your stakeholders, how well you can carry forward a problem statement end to end. So these are varying skills if you look at it, right? And there's a sort of a curve that comes along with that in some terms of complexity.
And so as what we are trying to do at 10x Club also for the freshers and mid-level also, so that we try to have these hackathons, workshop, these mentor sessions with leaders like yourself and other industry leaders. So what are your thoughts on this approach, and how this if really can help them in their future career or getting a role in the company? So what would be your thoughts on that?
Firstly, it's a fantastic initiative, right? I mean, these formats create a very safe environment to experiment. I mean, even collaborate and get feedback, because that's like you're kind of getting to know, obviously, people, you're getting to know various practices. So it's like you're on steroids and kind of, getting accelerated on a lot of these skills, all within that hackathon, those workshops. So it is all very, very critical for building a confidence, and even enhancing your practical skills. So when hiring comes into play, companies value candidates who have done some real projects, right, beyond just theory. And when you have done certain things specifically in workshops, you also get a first-hand experience in, I've done XYZ and I failed on these things, and I was able to kind of cover a roundabout way to kind of solve that. When you talk about these things to your peers or to your interviewee in an interview, it means a lot, because it also gives some confidence to the person interviewing, saying yes, this person knows that they have done certain things, versus just purely talking about theory, which probably the interviewer will catch it very soon upfront. So yeah, I mean, keep doing what you're doing. I think it's a amazing initiative.
Sure, sir. And we will continue doing this with your guidance and guidance from industry leaders. We will surely try to keep this impact going on.
Sure.
So we are just coming to the last few questions, and we have a very interesting question. So as you have had a long journey in data, so have you ever found a data insight so weird or surprising that you said that no way this is going to be real?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of them throughout my career. And I would be not doing justice if I had said no. There's so many weird insights that do come out with data. And it's like literally the best part of my career, right? Best part of my life, looking at data and figuring it all out. And sometimes it opens up a can of opportunities as well. But yeah, if I were to share, right, a classic example, there was a sort of a feature release that was done. And what we realized was there was a major drop off that was coming in, and everyone was thinking like, hey, is it because of this feature release? And consistently the transactions were kind of going down. People are not able to figure out, right, what went wrong. And as we started looking into insights deeper, we saw sessions were fine, users were coming in fine, there were existing users who were using this, not like a new user not understanding the process. What we were very surprised, however, was this particular feature was kind of weirdly interacting with a particular mobile device, a specific model in nature. And when we were looking at the whole base, by the way, we did not even realize it at that point, that it was impacting that base. And when we said, oh, this particular model, I don't want to name that model, but it was the third most used model in the entire user base. And thankfully we had that data, and we were correlating this data, saying how much of that has an impact. We saw that weirdly this feature was not working very well for this one particular device, and that was absolutely like mind-boggling. And then immediately we gave this insight in real time to the engineering team. They went in, did a hot fix, and that suddenly enabled everything, and all your transaction rates came back normal within probably 6 hours of that. So I find like, these things are, very weird in nature, and sometimes it's not very obvious. So you have to go unnoodle a lot of these things. You have to also think like, could it be a device? Could it be a browser? There have been instances where issues have been with browsers as well. So you don't really know. So always don't assume. So the very first thing I tell my teams is, assumption is the biggest enemy of analytics. Never assume. Go with a very open mind. Anything can go wrong, and you go figure out. But obviously you need to do it with a structure.
And so, as you said about the insights, so I think we could also have a conclusion from that data plays a very big role here, because these are some things which we can't see directly, that okay, this is happening, and data gives you that insight immediately. Okay, this was the situation, and you can take the following decisions. And I think that data has, in today's time where everything is over the net, huge amounts of data, I think the importance of data analyst is a lot in today's time, if I'm not wrong, sir.
Absolutely.
Okay, so sir, next we would go for a quick rapid fire round. So
Okay.
I'll have 6 questions for you. And if you could just answer in 1 or 2 words, so we'll keep it very quick. So we'll start with first, SQL or Python?
For a foundation, SQL. For a power user, Python.
The one tool you can't live without?
Tableau.
The one word to describe your leadership style?
Empowering.
One book every data enthusiast must read?
I'm sure a lot would have heard about it. Storytelling with Data by Cole.
One myth about data analysts that needs to die?
Analysts do data pulls. Sorry, great analysts drive business outcomes.
And the final one, a very interesting, if not data, what career would you be in?
Probably product manager or venture investing, because both require structured problem solving.
So, okay, this was our rapid fire round, and I think we got interesting answers from your perspective. And we could truly see your leadership style from just one session, that how empowering, because we feel that, and our learners also feel that. So thank you a lot for that, sir. And just coming to a last question from our side. So what would be the most important advice you'd offer to our aspiring data professionals and everyone who is watching this session today?
Okay, yeah. So I think focus less on chasing tools. Don't marry to any platform, right? Marry the problem, because tools will come and go. They'll keep evolving. Today you have one tool, tomorrow there's something else. So focus less on them and more on developing structured thinking, business context, and developing amazing communication skills / storytelling skills. Data is ultimately a means, right, to influence decisions. You need to master that specific art, and you'll stay relevant no matter what tools come, how AI evolves. There is that human element that you need to focus on. As long as you're able to focus on these aspects, you'll be good.
So wonderful advice and a wonderful session that we have interaction with you. We got to learn a lot of things from your experience, and we are really, really honored to have you, sir. So this was the questions that we found, relatable and we could ask. So if, with your permission, if you would want to take any questions from our learners.
Yeah, sure. If you can help curate, I'm more than happy to answer.
Sure, sir. So it's a kind of a very general question, but I think a lot of people have this. So in an interview, is it important for the candidate to answer all the questions to get selected, or it should be a different approach? So what should be the way that we should go ahead? Answering a lot of questions or answering the right or giving the right answers?
I think the better approach is to connect with your interviewer. Answering questions is just a formality that comes in. I have seen folks who have answered all questions, even accurately, but never got selected. It's primarily because they were never able to connect with the interviewer. See, a lot goes in, as I said earlier, right? You could be the most amazing person in terms of, having the best rock star skills in SQL, Python, and you probably nailed it 100 out of 100 in technical questions. You've answered all questions in there, but somewhere deep there, when the interviewer asks you a certain question or a problem statement, you went with a very unstructured approach. You've lost it right there. There's no right or wrong answer there, but it's around how well you are able to kind of articulate and able to connect to the interviewer. So I would rather say there is no how well you've answered all the questions or how accurately you answered the question. Those just a formality. It's obviously there, but the most important thing is to connect with the interviewer and make sure you're able to kind of articulate and this in the first 5-10 minutes. I'm sure a lot of the folks probably realize it. First 5-10 minutes is what you have to kind of develop that connection. I think if you're able to focus on that, the rest, everything falls in line.
Sure. So we had a question there that he was referring to your education, the background being engineering, and you mentioned that you started working with data at an early age. So a learner, Shubhra, wants to ask that what point did you try to acquire financial knowledge, coming from a non-finance background? So because I think she's also from a non-finance background. So what should be the approach that she could go into the finance field?
So when you're looking at various aspects, right? See, finance is everywhere. I don't think you should be looking at, hey, I'm entering a finance field. How do I learn about it? It starts as basic as credit and debit, right? Something that you start at your home. Like if you've done your budgeting, your own income that comes in and your savings, that to me is also finance. How well you are able to save and how you're able to identify, hey, I'm spending over 10,000 rupees in petrol, or I spent 20,000 rupees consistently over the last 3 months over transportation, and now I want to save. Maybe I should choose metro or something. That is an analyst looking at optimizing things. So I think it starts right at home. Now, if you're looking at a larger scheme of things, like when I want to work in an org, and if I got that question the right way, ideally, for me, it was like I just entered the field of investment banking. My very first job was with Deutsche Bank, and I was, thrown into the, oven, and I had to bake myself and, obviously burn myself at times. But it was okay. I didn't really care about the burn. What I really enjoyed was, hey, how can I learn more and more things about finance? How can I learn more things about investments? And what is the common data points in there, right? And I think if you're able to develop that interest, how do I go solve? Take 2-3 problems and try to stretch yourself in solving those problems. You'll automatically start gaining certain things. Some things you might go wrong. That also helps you. I think there's no finite way of defining what's the best way to finance. It's just about taking 2-3 problems and be able to try and solve that. By the way, there are folks who are asking question around our book. What is that? I'm just seeing in the comments. Just to repeat once again, it's Data Storytelling by Cole. That's a huge name, but it's normally known as CNK. But if you Google that out, you will get the name.
So, sir, can we take 2 or 3 more questions, if that's all
right?
right?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah.
So, okay, we have a question from Pavan. So he asks that what is the structure to be followed by a QE to become a data analyst, and if you could give them any suggestions or what could be the roadmap for him.
So when I'm assuming QA is a quality engineer, someone who's already, I'm assuming that's where it is. So I think it's again the basics, right? If you've been in quality or automation aspect, you're already aware of how you can automate. I'm assuming if you're at a front end QE or a back end QE, if you're a back end QE, you already know SQL. If you're a front end QE, you probably look more on the coding aspects, the actual scripts, probably doing less with SQL. So very first thing, learn SQL, learn Python. There's absolutely no two ways about it, because that's the very first time you're going to enter data, because I'm assuming at that point you would have not looked at data the way it should really look. So get yourself aware with that. Parallelly, you should be learning a little bit about stats. What's the difference between a mean versus a median versus R square and all of those very basic ones. This is where I think if you're able to niche your skills, you can slowly start getting into an analyst role. These are your basic building blocks.
And so I was seeing a lot of questions which we could accumulate into one. So a lot of people have questions on their gaps, that they have a gap between their career due to personal reasons or any other reasons.
Sure.
So, if you, as being a leader in the industry, if you could give any advice that how does it affect, and if it does, what should be your way to explain it if you are, true on your part?
Sure. See, there could be multiple reasons why you could have taken a gap. It could be you are a working mother, you suddenly had to take a career break or due to maternity. It could be someone just took a break because of certain personal issues at home, or just someone decided to take a break because they wanted to kind of reinvent or just went traveling, backpacking, right? There could be multiple reasons. Now, there's various ways to articulate that. Firstly, to answer the question, I think in the current structure in organizations, earlier, I think at least when I started out of college, it used to be a factor that people used to ask, oh, why there's a gap, and it was a big no flag. I don't think we are in that mode at this point in time where gaps are considered a big red flag, unless you are not able to articulate and explain, and it's not necessary, but sometimes interviewers do ask that, hey, what is the reason for this gap, right? And if you have a valid reason, like you could be like you're a returning mom, you have to take care of family and now you want to get back into the workforce. In fact, companies do promote that, and there's a lot of push around that. If you've wanted to just take a time break for yourself for your career break, and you just wanted to kind of reinvent yourself, that's a break for you. You started doing business, you failed in it, you are an entrepreneur yourself, you want to get back to being into the corporate world. That could be one example. You just forgot everything, you just traveled, and you had still a perspective. Now, if you look at it, I am giving these reasons as someone who would have probably taken a break. If they're able to articulate that in a way which isn't creating a negative thing, like even if you've taken a break and you've traveled, you just don't say like I've traveled for 2 years. But if you're able to tell your interviewer, I traveled to XYZ places and I learned so much about their culture, learned so much about perspectives, I learned a new language for that matter. That shows that you've not been idle, but you've done something over a period of time. And that's a very important win, when you're looking, because people don't look at hiring people just because you have an amazing SQL skills, or at least not in analytics. We also look at how is your intent, how diversely are you able to think about, because that's the more value add for us. And if you're able to articulate that, that's you're already good at storytelling skills. You're able to articulate your thing. So I think that's how you should be presenting yourselves in interviews.
We'll take the last question for today, and I think this is a very important one. So, Kirti also asks, first is how to do good projects in DA, and also what is the importance of having previous project experience or real life case study experience when you go into an interview.
So what was the first question? How I got the second question. Could you please repeat the first part?
First, like what projects to select, or what should be the go to path or the roadmap to select good projects, and from also the source for where we can get it.
Okay, so if you don't have anything, right, and if you are, and I'm talking purely about analytics / data science / anything else, and I don't know how many of you are aware, there's a concept called citizen data scientist, which everyone is evolving to, right, with the advent of AutoML. My first suggestion is go to Kaggle, and there are numerous sites like that. But Kaggle gives you enough projects to play around. It has data sets, it has problems to solve, so it gives you a very first-hand experience. If you have nothing, this is the very bare minimum you can do, and it really opens your perspective. It's as good as getting some real-world experience. Second part, if you're entering, let's assume, pharma industry, and there's pharmacovigilance, there's analytics in pharma as well. Now, obviously, if you do some project in finance and you're applying for a pharmacy role, they don't tie together, right? Versus if you're being a very generic aspect, you work on some very basic problems around, let's assume, transaction success, churn modeling, cross-sell models. There's a bunch of those models, right? There's logistics models that you can work around and be able to solve some common problems. There's with the advent of, again, AI, I mean, the same approach would have been very, very difficult 6 months ago or maybe a year ago. Today, you have so much information ready at your disposal. You have data sets that you can look at, all available readily. You have even certain models that can explain you how to go about solving a problem structurally and guiding you to do that. There are AI tools that help you guide. So I think with leveraging all of that's already available, right? I think you should be picking up certain problems that portray real world impact. Like, for example, fintech is evolving and booming rapidly in India.
Right.
So pick certain examples and models around how to solve problems around fintech, right? How do I say raise success rates? How do I look around cross sell? How do I identify certain customers? This propensity of prosperity, lending, kind of propensity to churn, propensity to lend. There's so many models that you can work with. So I think picking that right problem and be able to articulate is very, very important. Lastly, but not the least, take in as much as domain knowledge, read, right? It's very important for you to read a lot of these common articles, a lot of, I think I shouldn't be saying this, but HBR's is a paid subscription, but you have very similar information there that are available on, on your chat GPTs, where you can ask it questions, it gives you articles around that and much more. So I think it's also about keeping yourself aware about the latest technologies and latest, themes that are happening out in the industry. You do that, and I think to a larger extent, you can connect to your interviewer or to your stakeholder to stay relevant.
So I think that was all for this exclusive fireside chat with Mr. Dhiraj Naik. And I personally felt that it was really valuable for me also, getting those insights from a leader to how to progress in your path. And I'm sure that our learners also had a very valuable instance today. So thank you so much, sir, for giving your time, sharing your experiences and your suggestions. And these are really valuable for one and all attending this session, because you have seen this whole path which we are trying to go inside now. So thank you so much, sir, for your time. And we are really honored that you gave your time and you shared your experiences with us. It is really, really valuable for us.
Thank you for having me. Truly an honor to kind of portray and kind of answer this question. Very interesting content of questions, by the way. So thanks for that. And definitely, I'm doing my bit in terms of enabling the analytics and data science community. So, anything that I can do in terms of enabling the new crowd that's entering this space, or folks who are laterally entering, I hope this session was valuable to them, and looking forward for more of these sessions where you have more leaders in here. I think this is a wonderful thing that you and the team are doing.
Thank you so much, sir, for that. And we're really glad that, we are getting that appreciation from a leader like you. And we will continue to try to create this impact. So thank you so much, sir, for your presence. And thank you so much, learners, for attending this session.
So viewers, that was really, really an amazing session. And those secrets that we got to know today to how to accelerate your career in analytics is something that CXO Café only brings you. And to know more, follow us on LinkedIn, Coding Ninjas 10X Club page, to get in contact with more such leaders and more such intricate solutions that will take you from X to 10X. And today, this was just the starting of the CXO Café series. And in the next episode is something special. Not just tech, but how you can serve the nation without wearing the uniforms. So stay tuned to the CXO Café series by Coding Ninjas 10X Club. And if you don't know where to start and how to start, please click on the description below and it will take you to the course page of Coding Ninjas that will surely help you with the roadmap and also to accelerate your career in analytics.